live streaming so.
Now it's recording. Okay, well there's a couple things that made me decide to go ahead and do this. One, tonight's game was canceled, so I was like, hey, I'll whip together something to, to give people a reason to show up. And then, in particular on Tuesday, we were playing Castles and Crusades on Tuesday, and we were kind of making comments about how sparse the group was. Keep in mind, it's a Tuesday group playing Castles and Crusades, which is not anywhere near the top 5. And we only had 7 people show up on a Tuesday night. So, and we oftentimes have like 10 or 11 people. So, I got to thinking about it because sometimes people start up games, and Wendy had 12 people for Battlestar Galactica on Sunday. And then, like Heath started a game on Monday, and he had 3 guys, and he had all these spectacular models and stuff like that. But it's kind of a building process, and that's one of the things we'll get at.
Well, the problem is that you just recently started Mondays.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We've talked about the Monday thing. We think it'll take like a month before people go, oh, you're open on Mondays? So.
Well, what's happening on Mondays, by the way?
He's running a Pathfinder game. You have to get online and look at the paper models and stuff he's making up. So, okay, here's what I'm going to do.
Full scale film color force.
Oddly, I actually have notes.
What?
Which this is more prepared than I am for most of the RPGs that I run. So,
Okay.
I'm just going to go around the table real quick and just everybody say, I'm so and so, even though everybody kind of knows everybody, kind of. And here's the games I play. Here's what group I might be a part of. Blah blah blah. Richard, go.
Already? Okay.
The guy with the food in his mouth.
Yep. Exactly. Perfect timing. Good person. I started role-playing in college.
What's your name, Richard?
Oh, Richard Ken.
Okay.
I started role-playing like an AA meeting.
Yes, you gotta do AA stuff.
I started role-playing in college. I started with a Magic Gathering group. It was a gaming club that does both. I started with D&D. It's kind of a pseudo first edition, second edition. Yeah. We mostly use second edition, but we mostly play it. Then move on to do other stuff. My experience include second, third, fourth, Destiny 5th. I play old school World of Darkness, except a lot of their systems. The new school ones. I like GURP. I play GURPS, Shadowrun. Wow, it's kind of hard to name all of them.
Well, what all are you currently playing?
Currently, I'm currently playing a Kingmaker campaign and a Beer Region campaign for Pathfinder. For D&D, I'm currently running the D&D Encounters group, and also I'm playing in another D&D game on the weekends. We are Paragon level, so we're like 50 level. That's pretty much.
And you play Castles and Crusades and DSG.
Yeah.
I have to tell him what all he plays.
Yeah.
He calls me sometimes every day and say, "What games today?"
Because we just do every other week.
What game do I play in today? I know.
Pretty much.
I hear you. Sometimes the others.
So what he actually tries to do is, like, he plays in like every Saturday game and just brings all the stuff for both of his Saturday games.
Yeah.
That's smart thinking.
Alright, so I'm Stephen Milness, and I just got into RPG, but I've been playing board games at NKU for a while, so I've got that. And then I got in on, I forget his last name, Richard's Risk group, and then that stopped for a while. They started up Slayers. He had to stop doing that. And just recently, Doug really started up Shadowrun here. And I really took a liking to it, so I've decided to start my own group of Shadowrun at NKU, which I'll be starting up, and hopefully we'll be able to keep my group of 5 that I've got now together, because I keep getting people who drop out. So
Yeah, and then, so this is like a perfect meeting.
Yeah.
You don't want to participate, do you?
I don't have to.
everyone. All right. For me, I started RPGing probably in college, so and I've had main games I've played have been Todd, which has been cool. Trying the old editions and the Pathfinder stuff that's been going on. Other thing I hate to say is in front of the camera. I GM'd 4th edition for a little bit at school, just because I was the only person we had there. And then I've done others like March ones that have all been there for launches. So played like a couple sessions and then they'll kind of peter out. So
Brian?
I started in college, my second year. A friend of mine had Star Wars West End Games a few years before the prequels came out, and I really enjoyed it. The way they played it was very much role playing and storytelling rather than dice rolling, and then I just got, being a Star Wars fan, I got absorbed with it, and I bought a ton of the stuff and kind of followed some role playing games for a while. It wasn't until several years later that we started playing more serious board games, tabletop games of Warhammer, then Star Wars and HeroClix collectible games. Recently, we were playing Saga Edition before Wizards of the Coast dropped the Star Wars line, and we followed that for a while. I've played Serenity for over a year and really enjoyed the Cortex system. Kind of went through a dry spell with games, and some friends were playing Pathfinder, and I was not into the idea of playing fantasy games, but the Ultimate Combat book came out, and there was gunslingers, samurais, and ninja. I said, sign me up. Sign me up. I can do that. I can be a gunslinger. So we got back into playing Star Wars, and I've explored a little more with the Pathfinder stuff, and I've really enjoyed it. And I really enjoyed the PFS aspect of role playing, and that really entices me because it kind of goes back to some of the tabletop wargaming where there's some competitiveness, but there's also a larger community that you can latch on to. It's a lot of fun.
Heath?
I'm Heath Smith, and I've started playing when I was about 15 years old at Top Secret in TSR. It was my very first role-playing experience, and that was also probably my most continuous, longest-running campaign that I ever participated in. I was big science. I was a big spy buff before I even really knew about D&D. And then the same guy had a Dungeons and Dragons AD&D group, and got me interested in that. But it never really, in all of these years, and I've played every edition, much like people here, including 4th edition, which I have mixed opinions about that. Not to all of them but I never really found in D&D on all of the years and all of the versions and so forth the tactical edge that I was able to get. I guess maybe it was just a genre or whatever of playing sort of the spy sleuths and so forth. So I went on and I played a lot of other TSR games and so forth. Star Frontiers was another one of mine, sci-fi experience I really enjoyed. It comes out to mind. Played, of course, Marvel Superhero Individual, which was kind of, there used to be a comic line called What If, and we kind of just like would follow that, use the Marvel rules a lot, do that kind of stuff. And so we got kind of silly with that. That was our light version of what we were doing. Currently, I play Pathfinder, both in the Pathfinder Society, and I just, as you mentioned, just started in a home group.
The Skull and Shackles Adventure Path.
Yes, and it's going to be that is going to occupy a good deal of my time. I'm still planning on and making as many society games as I can, but I really want to. My goal with that was to really do it up. Kind of my I've been gaming for a good number of years. Like I said, I participated in many groups, and ran a couple different campaigns myself, and some of them were very interesting and very intense, but brief. Other ones kind of dragged on and then faded away.
Yeah.
So, board games. We used to play a lot of like Axis and Allies and Shogun. When we were like, the GM didn't have a mod ready for that Sunday or something. we'd pull out one of those games or something, and of course the normal gamut of regular 2d6 board games,
Right.
and so other than that, I haven't watched TV in 4 years.
Gives you more time to game, right?
Yes.
Mike?
My name is Mike Richards. I've been gaming since I was a sophomore in high school. Started out with AD&D 2nd Edition. Didn't run that at all. I just played in it. Played that in a campaign that was on and off for about a year. We didn't play a ton in that game. And then pretty much didn't play again until I graduated high school in '96. When I got into a game of Legend of the Five Rings. We played in that campaign, the exact same campaign, with mostly the same players for 8 years. Then I get kicked out of that group. So I started my own, and I GM'd my own game of Legend of the Five Rings for 6 years. And then kind of got burnt out because I'd played the same game for 14 years. Now, played different versions of it, 1st through 3rd edition of that game, but playing that same world kind of got old after a while. So I wanted to get away from it for a bit, which is when I discovered Pathfinder. I ran a campaign of Pathfinder for about 2 years. And then the store opened, so then I started organizing the Pathfinder Society in the store and playing a lot of Pathfinder Society online and running online. Currently, I am playing in Pathfinder Society, Pathfinder Jade Regent, Battlestar Galactica, and I will be starting up running a Legend of the Five Rings game here in the store here at the beginning of the month of July, where I'll be co-GMing that game with Todd Bronze. I'll GM an arc, and then he's going to GM an arc, so we'll both have our own characters. All the players will have characters in there.
That way you won't burn out.
When an arc finishes, I start playing my character, and he takes over GMing. When his arc finishes, he'll play a character and I'll go back to GMing.
And did you say you run the board game meetup?
Oh yeah, board games. Forgot about board games. And I've been running the weekly board game meetup for about a year now. I'll be honest, there for a while I was way more into board games than I was into role playing. But
You're swaying back the other way.
yeah, I'm starting to go back the other way now.
Turning back to the dark side.
A lot more games that I want to run. Savage Worlds, I've run a couple one-shots of it in the store. I'd like to start running some Wild Talents here soon. And there's a couple other games I'd like to try out.
I started playing Milton Bradley kind of board games since as long as I can remember, and Atari 2600 and all that. But in 1981, I got D&D for my birthday, and my life's been downhill ever since. But actually, I did play some lead miniatures games a little bit before that. There were box sets that were for selling Sears catalog. And I always had great luck with getting groups together and keeping them together for a while. In the 80s, my first edition game went for 7 years. In the 90s, I had a second edition game that went for 5 years. In the 2000s, my third edition game went for 7 years. Well past when 3.5 came out, and we kind of had to avoid 3.5 for a while. And then in around, 2007 or 2008, I decided to start starting groups online and stuff like that. And I'm going to have to look at my list here. Currently,
I just remembered something that I'm in that I forgot about.
yeah.
Your Retro D&D League.
Oh, yeah. Right now, here's groups that I actually run or moderate online. There's a SOG Yahoo group, the Southwestern Ohio Gathering of Gamers. I started that about 6 years ago. And it's a Yahoo group, mostly RPG-centric. But we're up to 342 people. And then I started a Dayton meetup group when I lived closer to there from that same group. And it's currently 248 people. And we have monthly meetups up there, and there's like 26 people that show up, which is really high for meetup groups. I actually get a Wizards of the Coast sponsorship because of that. SOG also has a Facebook page with 239 people, a MySpace page that I haven't looked at for a long time, except for this week when I looked up how many people were on it, 260. And then that group started an East Side RPG meetup like 2 years ago. That's up to 111 people. I have the Gateway Games Facebook page, which is 429 people. Gateway Games Twitter account, which is 358 people. The Board Game Meetup is now 76 people. The Gateway Games and More Friends group, which is like the regular people that come in, is 129. Plus, I've joined 5 other Yahoo groups, 15 other Facebook groups, and 4 other meetup groups. So my inbox every day is absolutely insane. So if it takes me a day or two to respond to you, you know.
So Todd knows how to have a lot of friends and or followers.
Yeah. So basically, what I'm saying is, you know, I've made a life out of.
You've made this your life, yeah.
Yeah, out of getting people together. And one of the inspirations for me was one day I was sitting around in my living room with a buddy of mine, and he was talking about a game that he played every Sunday, and how one of the guys was an absolute horrible douchebag. 2 of them were just kind of into the game, and one of them, 2 of them he basically called warm bodies, and one of them was really into the game. And I'm like, why do you play with these guys? And he's like, you know, because they're warm bodies that I can play with. And I thought, hey. And when I started this Sog Yahoo group, my kind of code word for it was Geek Harmony. Because I thought, oh, I'll start a website where geeks can get together and play games. But that was 6 years ago, and this is kind of where it's led me. So, introductions. Part 1 over with. Part 2, I called Your Gamer Resume, or Why Would Anyone Want to Play With Me? So the first thing we'll look at is we'll look at ourselves. It's like when you go, kind of think of it as going to job interviews or getting ready for a job interview. It's like, why you? If someone only has 4 hours a week where they can play a game, why do they want to play with you? Or why do they want to play with you? Or why do they want to play? You know, because some people, that's all they have. You know, the people that are here, we have the luxury of actually getting to play maybe 4 hours twice a week, right?
Well, yeah, right.
So, you know, based on like time constraints and stuff, one of the biggest things, like number 1, is to be prepared. You know, because remember, you know, you may have all day, but the guy across from you might be the CEO of a major corporation, and he's blocked out that 4 hours a week, you know, where his wife and kids won't call him, where work won't call him. So, I mean, it could be a big deal. So, you know, be prepared, you know. Don't show up and say, you know, hold on, I need to go run and get a pizza, I'll be right back. Or, I forgot my character sheet. Can I borrow some paper from it? You know, and same thing as the game master. You know, something I'm notoriously bad for is, hang on, I'll be right back. I got to get something out of my car. So, another big thing, consistency. You know, if you say we're going to play every Monday from here on out, do your best to play every Monday. Because if you end up canceling every 3rd Monday, you know, everyone will think, well, Steven cancels every 3rd Monday, so I'm just going to take the day off. And then sooner or later, you know, you only have running on, you know, 3 cylinders during most of your games. Flexibility. You know, sometimes when I see people posting that they're looking for a group, they're like, well, I want to play Star Wars, but it's got to be in this era, in this sector of the galaxy, and there's no Jedis, and it's like, whoa, how long has it been since you played a game? 7 years. Maybe loosen up your standards a little bit. You know, you can't just say this is this, it's got to be this or I'm not playing. You know.
You gotta let somebody play at Tarrasque if they want to.
Yeah, yeah. know your strengths and weaknesses. If you love fast storytelling games and you don't like to read a lot of rules, and someone says, I'm starting a Champions game next week, do you want to play? Don't say yes, because the basic rules are like 600 pages long. So kind of know your strengths and weaknesses. Be professional, especially if these might be people you only see once a week. So I'm not saying don't have fun, but you need to treat it a little bit like going to work every day. You can't always sit down and talk about religion or politics, or the game's not going to last very long. Be self-sufficient. If you're in your third year of a campaign, I'm thinking you should have the core book already. Bring pencils, have your own dice. I mean, obviously, as soon as you first walk into a game, you might not have the core book. You might want to play it a couple times. You might not have the exact right dice, or you might not have minis. But work on that. And also, by self-sufficient, be able to get yourself back and forth to the game. Because another thing I see a lot of, especially on boards online, is I'm really looking to get into a D&D game, and sometimes they'll put, it's got to be a 3.5 game based in the Forgotten Realms, and someone needs to pick me up every week.
Gotta combine it.
And so, especially, like if you don't have a ride, you need to be a lot more flexible. Like, I'm willing to play anything. And we'll get to that as to why, you even if you don't like D&D or Pathfinder, why you might want to play it for the next 6 months or 12 months,
just to meet people.
Yeah. Be polite. The general social things. Be polite. Have good etiquette. If you don't have time to shower before you go into a 12-hour gaming session, you don't have time for a 12-hour gaming session. So
That's good
Yeah.
advice, Todd. And I mean,
and one of the guys on the Happy Jacks podcast has a 1, 2, 3 rule for conventions: 1 shower a day, 2 meals, and 3 hours of sleep. That's his goal every day.
3 hours of sleep.
3 hours of sleep.
no, I mean, but that's
During convention.
Yeah.
that's minimum in keeping your sanity. That's very close to,
Yeah.
like I do a lot of adventure programming at work. That's very key to how to keep your sanity when you're camping or backpacking or doing
Right.
trips. You have to wash yourself,
Right.
not just for hygiene reasons, but for your own sake of being civilized.
Right.
2, you have to set times aside to hydrate and meal. And 3, like you said, you need to spend some time resting.
Yeah.
And we operate in 3s: 3 minutes without air, 3 days without water, things like that.
Right. And it's one thing if it's friends you've played with for 2 or 3 years, and you get off work late today, and you have to go straight there, and you're like, guys, I have sand in my hair, I have mud on my shoes, obviously there's give and take there, but in general, treat it like you're getting up and going to work. Get into a routine, be consistent. Make sure you take your book and your pencils. And it all ties into consistency and good etiquette. Because then when you show up, they're like, hey, and it's a different kind of hygiene. It's a group where actually you're more likely to get accepted if you didn't shave that day. So you kind of got to know the community. You might not want to show up in a Justin Bieber t-shirt, Richard, but no.
And then he basically said hygiene doesn't mean just a squirt of Axe. So
But you do have to think.
But the commercials.
what? I sprayed Axe before I got here. Still doesn't cover sleep.
Yeah.
Sorry.
You probably don't want to show up in a shirt and tie because they're gonna think this guy's stuffy. We can't crack jokes around.
Come on, I just got from work.
I know. But yeah, but people are gonna show up with their work badges on or their work shirts or their college. But you know, all those things don't matter. You know, just leave the Justin Bieber shirt on. You got it.
Unless you're LARPing, then you could be playing a Justin Bieber fan.
That's true. Oh yeah.
Well, if
So-
you're LARPing, then you don't want to pay. You want the
Yeah.
3-day stink.
So basically, before you even go to look for a group, kind of look at yourself, I guess is what I'm saying, and say, why do these people want to play with me?
Time to go
What
buy
can I
me.
bring to the table? And don't think bad of yourself because you've never even played anything. Because really, in a lot of cases, not knowing the rules can make it a better experience. As a GM, I love it when someone comes in and says, I've never played anything like this before. What do I do? And I get to say, whatever you want to do. Before Stephen played Rifts, had you ever played a role-playing game at all?
Yeah.
But you're a theater major, right?
Yeah.
So how did he not ever play a role-playing game? So that's kind of one. That's number one. Just take a look at yourself and figure out what you're going to fit in. And the thing is, if you absolutely hate superheroes, don't go join a superhero group just because you're looking at the game, because you might just bring everybody down. And when they're getting ready to start a fantasy campaign, they're going to be like, oh, we don't want Jason. Remember how bad he sucked in the superhero game? You know what I mean? Or if you do go in and say, look, guys, I don't know crap about superheroes.
Be honest.
And actually in a Champions game I'm playing in, I got one of the guy that's running it, his wife has started playing with us, and she doesn't know anything about superheroes, so she made a character that doesn't know anything about being a superhero. So you can kind of fit that in. So
That's often the best.
I was gonna say, there's sometimes the best characters. You've got a new player playing a new character.
so that was part 2. Part 3, how to find a group. As I rattled off at the beginning, social media is free, and you can join meetup groups, Facebook groups,
ENWorld.com.
penandpaper.com,
Looking for gamers.
Inferno.
Or you can come to any stores.
Yeah, you can go to local stores. Yeah, stores actually have gamers sometimes. And my next thing is become part of the local gamer community. It's like, come in, talk to people, hang out. The thing is, if you come in and play a few games at the board game meetup, if you play some Pathfinder Society, you play here and there, people are going to go, oh, hey, what about Heath? Do you think he'd want to play? Things like that. And post it, if you start posting in the forums, people will start to know your personality. So, even before I ever met Mike, I think he was a member of my Yahoo group for like 3 or 4 years. So he saw what my thoughts were, he saw what my opinions were. So he sent me, we had messaged back and forth a little bit, and I was like, hey, I'm starting a game store up. And he came in, and before we even opened up boxes for free. So basically, you can get to know each other, just from posting in forums. That's why the whole being polite and everything, you need to do the same thing in the forums. Don't go on there trolling, because in the end, when you sit down to play, when you sit down to play, you want to be able to get the people that you want at your table. And the more you you know, the more you actually think about it before you do it or say it, the more likely it is for you to get good players. You know, just like if you're, let's say you have your own construction company and you're getting temps from Manpower and you treat the guys like crap and you're always firing them and getting more, they actually start sending you crappier guys. Because when they first sign that contract with you, they're sending you the cream of the crop. Oh, you know. And if you start booting them out left and right, you start getting crap. Same thing with games. If you start running a game and the people that show up, you don't like them, and you start killing them and getting rid of them and kicking them out of the game, the better guys aren't going to start coming to play with you. You know, the better guys will come to start playing with you after you look at me and say, man, Todd was able to deal with Caleb. So I think I would like to play with him. You know.
If they're coming in to tell us they're probably
so yeah, you need to be very tolerant, especially when you're starting up.
If they just, like, the
Oh, okay. Especially when you're starting up groups for the first time. I know Steven's getting ready to start a Shadowrun game with a bunch of people that have never played an RPG, let alone Shadowrun. Right?
Not entirely true. I've got Josh and Quinn.
Oh, okay. So, you know, he's going to be a new GM with new players, and, you know, they're going to have to muddle through it because if 3 or 4 of them drop out, like in the first 2 weeks, it's going to be hard to get more people. Whereas if they all go, oh man, it's been great, next thing you know, you're going to have more people than you can handle on the show.
That's kind of what we prefer to have.
Like 14 people at Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah, and
Out of the blue.
like I said, even if you have a good gaming group going, you know, let's say you got 8 guys, and you're like, man, this is great, this is the perfect group. That doesn't mean you should, you know, drop out of the groups you're in and quit posting on forums, because sooner or later, one of those guys is going to move away, get married, you know,
Get a girlfriend.
get a girlfriend. I'm keeping an eye on Caleb. I'm trying to keep him away from the girls.
It's trouble, Caleb. Don't mess with it.
But sooner or later, someone might not be able to make it. You know, they get a job, that second shift or third shift or whatever, and all of a sudden. So if you keep connected the whole time, you know, it's like all the time I'm like talking to people and they're like, if you get an opening, you let me know, and you know, I'll slip in. You taking off, Mike?
Yeah.
Okay. It'll be on video.
Bye, Mike.
I'll just take Mark.
Then you can overdub your comments and pretend like you were still here, telling people off.
I edit this part out. Give his comments.
Another aspect about not dropping out, or what you were doing once you get a group going or whatever, is you may be overcommitting yourself to that one new project,
Right.
and you know that can show up too in your personality. Whereas like you still want to, it's all about having fun, right? And if you're having fun and you know before doing two or three other things, and all of a sudden you become this hermit who only wants to play his own game,
Right.
you know that's probably not a good, you know.
Not healthy.
Yeah, it's not healthy, and it probably doesn't reflect well with the people that you may have. You know, they may start missing you at the other places, and then all of a sudden
Right.
they start missing you at your own game.
Right. Right.
You're an audience of one.
And when you're getting a group together, you know, you have to take some initiative. And by that, I don't mean walking up and posting a sign on this back board. You know.
There's a board.
Yeah.
Can we count up how many
Really,
track?
no one really posts on my board, because when they walk in the store and they say, hey, I want to start a game, they say, post it on Facebook. You know, post it here, post it there. I mean, there's a lot better ways to reach people. Start making phone calls.
Talk to you.
Yeah, or talk as a game store owner.
Talk to you. Local
Or
game
you-
store owner, yeah.
Any game store owner. Talk to the guy sitting beside you. You know. And then if it's your campaign, especially, if you're going to be running a game, sell it. Kevin had like 12 people for his Jade Regent campaign before you knew it, because when someone walked in the door, if they walked over by the Pathfinder books, he was like, "Hey, I'm starting the Jade Regent campaign on such and such a day." And the thing is, he told 12 or 13 people,
Probably more.
thinking that like 6 people would show up, but he told 12 or 13 people, and 11 of them showed up. So, but that's good. But you always shoot for more than you expect, because you're only going to get like 80% turnout sometimes.
And of them, you're going to end up with more bodies that are going to float away.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, sell it. Be enthusiastic about it. The thing is, if when you walk up to me to tell me about your game, if you're like, well, yeah, I threw this D&D thing together, and I was looking for some people that want to play. Richard, are you interested?
Not really.
Yeah. But if I walk up and go, dude, this Pathfinder game I'm starting is awesome. It's this and this and this. What do you think?
A little bit too close. Personal space.
Personal space.
Right in the middle.
You believe your own self, though.
Yeah, you got to believe in what you're doing.
Yeah.
And really, if you can't get that excited about it, maybe you need to relook at what you're doing. And another thing I don't think I mentioned is be willing to lead or follow, too, in these groups. It's like sometimes you have to sit back and realize,
Well, for example, with Doug's group, I've sort of taken the reins on. I'm the go-to guy for everybody else, and then I relay their messages to Doug, because none of the other guys really go on Facebook. Andrew
Right.
doesn't even use Facebook, so it's like, yeah, I have to relay. Okay, are we good? Because this past Saturday we were going to meet, and then my friend Josh. Turns out that he had to work Riverbend for a concert. So I had to do a mad scramble to see, okay, what day works for Doug? Okay, does this day and time work for everybody else?
Yeah.
And
also the players, he's the only one with a book. So I'm sure you get rules questions all the
Yeah.
time, too. I've seen him post. So in a way, you're the game organizer, even though you're not running the game.
yeah, and then for the game that I started, I created another group for all the people that I had let know, and so that they can make posts to me and I can make posts to them or posts to each other. And if somebody else wants to start up a group like I'm trying to get my friend Josh to, then there's that way. So that way, unfortunately, nobody really uses it. But
Yeah. Yeah. So there are a lot of ways to go out and find a group. Especially with a local gaming store and with the internet now. When I was 13 years old, 14 years old playing, it was the middle of the summer. I would be like, well, my cousin's spending the summer with us. I got one player. It's like, who's within bicycle distance? And it's like, be here at 1. Be here at 1. Be here at 1. Call 3 or 4 buddies, and then go, oh, I better make an adventure. And you start drawing out the map, and then they get there, and none of them had books. I was the only one that had books, but I was in a small town. I was in the small village of Camden, and I had to show everyone how to play. I had to be, very helpful, very patient, but there are people that played with me for years and years, and you don't have to have experts to have a good time. Some of the best games I've ever played are with people that had never played a game before in their life or had minimal experience.
They tend to think outside the box.
Yeah. So that was part 3. And now, how to keep the group going. Let me tell you, besides playing role-playing games, since I was 13, I've played guitar and rock and roll bands for like 25 years, and it's all the same concepts. and I've been playing with the same guys for like 22 years. Well, the same drummer. The only people that have ever left the band have left because they died, and we had to replace them. So it's like no one has ever quit, you know, and it's a lot of the same thing. You have to get along, you know, be professional, you know, pull your own weight, have your own guitar strings, you know, that sort of thing. So it's a lot of the same concepts. And reliability is a huge thing. Because, you know, I mentioned before, the guy playing across from you might be the CEO of a major corporation or the assistant mayor of Bethel. So that's an inside joke, sorry. And so their time might be precious. I mean, they might have to turn their phone off for 4 hours, you know.
Which they want to do.
Yeah.
That's why they're there.
Yeah.
Some people could be doctors, and they
Yeah.
have to take a
But
break
actually,
from.
we've had doctors, pilots,
Police.
all kinds of IT nerds. But that's a given. So,
IT people like gaming.
superheroes that are trying to slip out and play some games. But and that's sometimes the problem in a situation in a store as opposed to in your home where you're lounging around drinking beers for 12 hours. You know, someone's cooking dinner. You know, sometimes when you're here for like Pathfinder Society or even like Hero Clicks, you know, you have to realize that the guy on the other side of the table might not want to chat about, you know, Stargate Universe while you're trying to play a game, you know, and crosstalk can slow games down, which, you know, we're notorious for at Castles and Crusades on Tuesday. But, you know, you got to feel out the group first. You know, if it's a lot of casual players, you know, it's very valid for someone to want to be playing for the social aspects, you know, not just competition. So, you know, you got to give those people some leeway, you know, give them their few minutes to tell a story, you know, but then those people need to give you, those people need to just get serious and roll their dice sometimes. You know, it's just got to balance out. You know, you can't keep the pendulum swung too far one way, you know, or you can lose people. And it's great to have a mix. It's great to have a number, you know, if you're the GM, it's great to have a player that has a 3-ring binder with all the needed information for the game. But then, you know, it's also fun to have the guy that's a little bit of comic relief sometimes on the other side of the table, wanting to blow everything up.
I find that a lot often that if people want to hang out outside the game, they tend to have the game longer, just because
Right.
they are willing to spend time with it.
Yeah, because just like, you know, Heath might only have 4 hours to play a game a week. You know, Richard might only have 4 hours to socialize this week. You know, so, you know, we just got to find some sort of balance in the middle. Don't give up. I've seen, you know, people say, I'm going to start a campaign. They make a post. Not enough people show up. They scrap the campaign. You know, my Castles and Crusades game, the one I do here on Tuesday nights, that was actually my 3rd try at getting a Castles and Crusades game using old Greyhawk modules going. The first time was like 5 years ago, and actually Alan from the Traveler game was kind of involved in that a little bit. We never even played game 1. You know, I had a Yahoo group set up with maps and artwork and some outlines. We never got to the table. And then about 2.5, 3 years ago, I started up with, you know, some home group players that I was playing with. And, you know, like 2 sessions in, it was like, are we going to go back and play Serenity? You know, and it's like, oh, okay.
Not the right group.
Yeah. So, and then, you know, the Tuesday night group, all of a sudden, I started up here. The first day we had like 11 people, you know, but then the next session, it dropped down to like 5 or 6, and I'm like, oh, is it going to drop off like this, like from here on out until it disappears? Then the session after that was back up to 10. And now we usually bounce between 7 and 10 people at any given time. And were you here when I was saying that on Tuesday we were like, oh, there's hardly anyone here. There's only 7 of us playing on a Tuesday night, you know, that sort of thing. So it's like, you know, it's something I tried to start up, didn't quite get to start on it. Then the next one, you know, and then I think it was the D20 Slayers game. Wasn't it just like me and you and one other guy
It was me, you, and Josh.
for like 5 or 6 sessions?
It started out with me, you, Josh, Marcus, and somebody else who came in to be our archer the one time.
Oh,
And then those 3 guys dropped, and then I got
But-
Andrew in as well.
yeah, it was like the 3 of us for like a month and a half. It seemed like, or for a month.
No, I was able to bring other people in slowly but surely.
Yeah, but then some people would come and then they would disappear. And next thing you know, we were having like 6 people every time.
And then canceled.
Yeah. So that's a story for another day. But yeah, be persistent. You know, just keep going. The meetup in Dayton. When I started it, we had a great. We had like 10 people the first meetup. It was like, this is great. And then we had like 8 people. Then between like 8 and 10 for the first couple meetups, and then it kind of dropped. And then I got to a meetup where it was like, we did a 4th edition game. 4 people showed up. Me, Wendy, my buddy Don, and Jeff, who's running our Champions game. We're the only ones that showed up. We could have stayed home and done that. But you know what? I still posted that we did it, and I kept going. And now the Dayton meetup, like I said, there's like 24 to 26 people at every meeting. It's actually expanded, you know, since I've opened up here, and you know, everything's gotten out of control. I have a guy that basically runs it up there for me, and now he does it on off weekends too. He kind of he adds extra meetups in there that I really don't have anything to do with, so keep growing. And I said it's what, over 200 people now, like 248 people. And you know, from that game of 4, it's like the next session I was like, let's. You know, I wasn't a huge D&D 3.5 fan. I actually like 3rd edition better, and that's what I played for 7 years. I was like, people seem to want to play 3.5, so I was like, oh, we'll play 3.5 at the next one. And on my way up to Dayton, I got a phone call from Jeff. He was like, do you want me to run a second table? And I was like, no, I think I can handle it. He's like, you have 12 RSVPs. And I'm like, what? You know, we had like 4 people last month. And so he ran a second table. And then for a year after that, you know, we had 2 solid tables. And then it takes a jump again, and now it's 3 to 4 tables every time, depending on how many people show up. And so, you know, because we stuck with it. And then, you know, I ran the 3.5 table for like a year and a half. You know, I enjoyed it, but it wasn't my preferred thing. But since I stuck with it for like a year and a half, you know, the meetup proliferated. And now, you know, I have no shortage of people to really play games with. You know, I can actually put together a campaign and not even post it. All I have to do is talk to this guy here, this guy here, this guy here, and I have 8 or 9 people, you know. And it's because I go play this guy's game. I go play that guy's game. You know, if you're trying to get someone to play your game, one of the best things you can do is go play their game.
Right.
So game networking.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's like if you're trying to talk me in to playing Savage Worlds, and I only play Spirit of the Century, you should come to a couple sessions of Spirit of the Century, and then I'll be like, hey, let's try that Savage Worlds. He was a good guy. I enjoyed playing with him. If he likes that game, it must be fun. You know.
So I kind of get the gist that it almost becomes like the game or the topic becomes secondary to the personality.
Right.
I mean, you're talking about 4th edition, or you're talking about board games or whatever, but really you're talking about yourself and being friends
Right.
and making friends.
Right.
And so I mean, it's like,
It's
you know,
just,
I mean,
yeah.
there is that person that's you know, very very busy and wants to come and play, you know, Munchkin for 4 hours a week
Right.
or a month, and that's all they really want to do it. They read a lot of the, you know, Word of the Stick or whatever, and they're really into it. But they're still not going to do it with people that they don't enjoy being around.
Right. And you know, most important thing to do is to have fun. You know, and if people aren't having fun, you know, if people aren't getting along, they're not having fun.
Right.
But there's a lot of give and take. You have to, you know, some of the funnest people I've ever played with never own the books. You know, they never know the rules. Every now and then they have to ask what a saving throw is. You know, but you know, they have their good points, and you have to see the good points in them, and you know, match together people that gel too. That's another thing too. It's like I may be able to get along with Brian just fine. I may be able to get along with Heath just fine. I may be able to get along with Greg. No, you know, but just because I can play with all you guys, it doesn't mean Caleb can play with Brian. You know, you got to kind of see a little bit of that too. So
You have to know how to read your group. You really do.
yeah, and the best thing to do is to get to know as many gamers as you can.
And style. A
Yeah,
lot of time, like the group really are very chaotic, and one person wants to be, you know, lawful. If he's willing to deal with the situation, that's fine. But if it's just not a good fit, it's just not going to work.
and some of my friends that have just been absolutely fabulous to play something like Fiasco or Spirit of the Century with, you might not want them to play a Champions game. They might bore them to tears. Or-
Our Serenity group, first they weren't really into Serenity. They didn't know what it was. They didn't know how the role play was going to work. They had played All Flesh Must Be Eaten, and in a very sloppy kind of homebrew way. I introduced them to Serenity and Firefly. They were amazed at, you know, my jokes that it was the Han Solo show was right, and they loved
Right.
it, and they were fired up to play it. And we played for a whole year, and we went the first GM. He kind of got burned out, and the group almost died. And somebody said, you know, Brian, you keep taking the lead when we play. Would you write some campaign stuff? I've seen some of the stuff you write, and I really like it. And we kept going for another almost 9 months. But as the game kind of got towards what eventually became the end, the group wanted to play Doctor Who. The board game came out, new Doctor Who season came out, and everybody was enamored with that and done with Serenity. So we tried the Doctor Who, and nobody got along at the table. People that we were playing with were
Same people.
exact same people.
just a different style.
It was a different game, a different genre, and it was. I didn't know Doctor Who. I mean, I know of it. My buddy couldn't stand it. 3 girls in our group who were amazing to play with in Serenity were enamored with the 2 Doctor Who's that were popular, and the group fell apart and stopped gaming. I mean, all together stopped gaming.
Yeah, you know.
Because I didn't, and my buddy just didn't read the group. We did not take into account how this was going to affect us, and did not make some kind of agreements amongst each other to get along, to
Right.
have fun. You don't have to get along with the person necessarily, but you have to want to try to have fun, and that just didn't happen.
I also wanted to add in there that what I found, and I've been around for a while, what I found about people is that whether it's work or you know, a band or something like that, you're a life, you're organic, and there is a time in the season, and unless you like figure out something that it changes. Like if you go from one group of people that were into the Serenity game, and then they go into a different genre or something like that. If you don't catch that shift and you miss it, that may be just a window missed, and
Yeah.
and you may just have to like, you know, try to stay in touch with them people, and maybe something else will come around that all of you will hitch on to and go again. But it's not really. I don't think it's a failure or anything. I think it's just.
Not good fit.
That's not. I mean, it's just it's organic. I mean, it's just, there's a time and a season. So I mean, you just have to like.
And
kind
it
of
could
be,
very well be that if you would have stuck with Serenity, the same thing could have happened. Because some groups need to change games. Some are perfectly fine with playing this. I've talked to guys that have played.
7, 8 years on some of these old D&D editions.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, we played
Amazing.
first
I've
edition
never
for
had-
7 years.
But I've heard a lot of that.
But one of the things we did is we would play about once a month through the school year because my cousin lived in Indiana, and then summertime would hit. We would hit it full bore, and as soon as we'd get burnt out, I'd go buy a box set of something new: Star Frontiers, Boot Hill, Gamma World,
Right.
The Marvel Superheroes
That's-
game, Villains
That's
and
what we
Vigilantes.
used to do with like Marvel superheroes. We would take
Yeah.
like country or like I said, the board game. We'd get an Axis and Ally that would go for a month. The same. I mean, we'd come back.
And
play
then
the
all of a
same
sudden,
game.
you'd be ready to tear through D&D the rest of
Right.
the summer.
Yeah.
So that's how we did it.
7-year break.
We kind of balanced it, and you have to do that when scheduling groups. One of my last bullet points is balance your life. It's don't.
It's starting to sound like motivational speaking.
Yeah, it is.
Well, it all revolves.
You have to make sure which this is another thing I've gotten really bad at because I just cram everything in, and I have like way too much to do. So I'm trying to figure out days where I can, sneak out every now and then. You might not see me here on a Sunday, or we're open on Mondays, and Kevin said to me, "I'll run the store on Mondays as long as I don't see your ass in here," things like that. So, as much as some guys don't want to admit it, is you have to keep the wife happy, you have to keep the girlfriend happy, you have to keep the kids happy, or you're going to be a grumpy bastard sitting there playing. You know what I mean?
Or we're not going to see you soon.
Yeah.
For a
if-
long time.
or
One
you
or
just
the other.
one of the thing. I mean, the thing is that it goes back. It's the same as taking time to bathe. How we kind of started off.
Yeah.
If you're not meeting the other areas of your life, then you're not doing your game or your hobby a service.
Right.
You're doing it a disservice.
Timing is also a major issue. If you try to start a game, don't start it near the holidays because the game is going to just fall through.
Or right at the beginning or right at the end of the school year seems to be like a bad time. It's
But
like
starting
right
a game at the end or beginning of the school year.
don't start it towards the end of the school year
Oh.
or towards the beginning of the school year. After the beginning
Let
of the
those
school year
two
is good.
life transitions
Yeah,
occur.
mine has to end.
How far after the beginning of the school year? Because I'm
Diablo
trying to get
3
Josh to
Electrons.
aim for starting a group sometime.
Post-
soon.
post-
Once the school year
Chicks, I'm
starts,
stealing your boy-
that's
stealing
fine.
your
Don't
boyfriend.
try to start one 3 weeks before the school year starts.
It's the box.
Like, oh yeah, I
Diablo
have time to
box.
play. Then it's like, oh, calculus takes up way
No, I
too much
learned
time.
from
You know,
Warcraft.
see,
I was like,
What I was doing
I was
with
going to start that
with my
campaign, and like
kids,
all of a sudden it just hit me.
finding out when their
I didn't
classes
think
are,
the Diablo came out.
having it one day, but everybody's free,
Right,
and because classes are every other day,
right.
so you have that day in between if necessary, plus
Right.
the time afterward.
Right. And then set a start time and an end time. You can't start up a campaign and say, we're going to start it, just get here sometime around noon on Saturday, and then we'll finish whenever. That may work when
That's
you're
a
in high
recipe for
school.
disaster.
Around
may-
noon could be 1 p.m.
Yeah.
That kind of sounds like how retro started off.
Yeah. But, that may work for a week or two, but, if you play till 10 o'clock every time, that's one thing. But as soon as someone goes home at 8 o'clock, it's like the next week. It's like, are you going to be at home at 8 o'clock again? You got to have a start time or end time. Well, and actually, I once watched a great instructional video on meetings called "Meetings, Bloody Meetings." John Cleese is the host. If you can ever
Wow.
get it, it's great. And one of the things he says in it is, all good meetings have a start time and an end time. Don't ever leave it open-ended. That way, I mean, you can run over or fall short or something, but you put the start time and the end time, it gives you a target, And then another thing, the families and the significant others of who you're playing with, it's always good if you get along with them too, because you don't want them going, oh, you're going to play with Todd today,
Right.
For a while, I was going to a friend's place. One thing I always bring with me is a set of chocolate for the wife.
Well, when Greg and Caleb have been up there trying to pick out their minis before they go, I've taken cupcakes out to the wife and kids, but they won't take them. They're always like, well, I didn't take them out. I went out there. And they're like, no, we're the whole family's on a diet or whatever. 5 minutes later, 2 of them are coming in to get the cupcakes. And one of the reasons we do the board game breakfast is we found that people will bring in family members that don't normally come to the store because, if you look around, there's something that you tend to see is like 1 girl, 2 girls. We have a higher percentage of girls than like any other game store, but it's still at any given time 3 or 4 to 1.
That's
And
Yeah, as you said, that's a high ratio.
and I found that once people brought their families and stuff to like the board game breakfast, and it's like mom was like, oh, they're not all a bunch of psychotic Satan worshippers.
Todd's not a cult.
Just a few of them.
Just a few of them are. Then all of a sudden, they're a little more in the clear to come here for 4 or 6 hours on a Saturday. And it's especially been good that, someone's mom actually told me it's nice to have a good, safe place you can take your kids to.
Drop them off for a couple
To
hours.
which I thought,
Your problem.
I never would have thought someone would have said that about me.
Right. Right.
If you would have told me that 20 years ago, I would have been like, what?
Yeah, nowadays, getting a new group is actually not that hard. Keeping it is difficult.
Keeping it is harder than finding it.
Also, it also depends how flexible you really are.
I think, that flexibility is a big thing, but I think the number one success that I've mostly had, again, I don't have multi-decade campaigns or even close to a decade, but one of the things was the very first key point that you touched on, and that is if you're hosting, to use the Facebook term, you need to be prepared. You need to have, you're going to run the game. It's different if you go into someone else's game and you're just a player in that game. Maybe you may have not read up the material. You might just gonna wing it for the first couple sessions. You might not even know if you're gonna be a regular every week guy or whatever. But if you're the GM of a game, you have to be passionate about what you're doing. You have to be informed about what you're doing. You have to be creative, flexible, professional. All of these words, and most of all, you have to be lighthearted. You can't be like so serious, like, oh, you're messing up my world. You're messing up. I put all this work into it because,
Right.
there's quotes, and I don't know if it was Gygax, I think it was, but I'm not exactly sure. But I know it was in the DMG, and he wrote most of the first DMG. And one of the statements that he said was, as the dungeon master, he used the old term, you're going to do tons of work that the players are just going to go and take a left turn and never see. But you have to do that. You need to do that work anyway, because it's the idea of giving the option, and this is I guess hitting on the last thing of keeping the group together. It's the idea of giving the option of the players really believe that they're in a fantasy realm, and that they have control over their character's destiny, as well as some influence in the world around them.
Yeah, there are a lot of, we could spend hours going into genre specific, D&D specific or board game specific. Like you said, as a GM, you don't want to railroad the players. And then, like board game groups and stuff like that, you want to bring a stack of games that everybody loves. And even though you may want to move on to something else, if you have new people there, sometimes you're going to have to play Seven Wonders for the 14th time this month, which isn't so bad.
I haven't played 17 Wonders in a while.
Well, okay, I used to go visit a friend of mine who normally play role playing game, but occasionally we play string games. No, those takes about 8 hours long to play.
Like 1833 and stuff
Yeah.
like that. Yeah.
I'm not a very fan of it, but I go play it because I want to hang out with the people.
Right.
If you can develop a relationship with your group, that's a key thing to maintain within the group. If you don't want to hang out with them, there's no very low chance that group survive.
And sometimes sitting through 8 hours of 1833 for one weekend will make this guy willing to play anything you ever want to play.
Okay.
You know what I mean? It's like, wow, you know, he played 1833 with me. You know, whatever he wants to do, I'm good to go. You know, because they just need that fix sometimes.
Yeah.
That's not a game that they're going to ask you to play every weekend anyway, you know. You know, and just like, you know, I've told people before, especially some people will want to run a very obscure game in a very obscure system, in a very obscure setting, but they don't want to play anything else.
Mm.
And it's like, really, if you're not willing to come play Pathfinder Society, you know, for 6 or 12 Fridays or whatever, you know, you're not going to be able to influence people into come and play your mouse guard hybrid superhero Buffy the Vampire Slayer game. You know, and I
Are
see.
you running that?
Yeah.
Yeah, where's the list for that?
I know.
That's Sunday. at
There'll be a
3
sign-up
RPG
sheet up at the counter.
This really is the whole purpose of today is Thomas trying to recruit people for his
Yeah.
game.
Buffy
And
Mouse card,
you were talking about like Serenity. Like, you know, sometimes you'll have a game like that, but a lot of your friends maybe they haven't seen Firefly, and you know they'll love it. You loan them the DVDs. You invite them
that's what
over
ended
to
up
watch the
happening.
movies.
They were playing All Flesh Must Be Eaten.
Yeah.
The guy who was hosting was in his own house, and he was putting up the time, and I mean, he was the host. He was really going out on a limb doing it, but things were starting to fall apart, and he was losing track of his players. And I had just kind of come into that circle of friends, and I was willing to give it a shot, but every time I showed up, they would cancel, or he wasn't prepared. And those are
Right.
things. And so I had said, you know, somebody had bought the Serenity book, and I'd never played Cortex before, so it was a system I wasn't familiar with, but I loved the movie. The group did not know anything about the movie, so we set up a game night where we play zombies. So we kind of fed the old me. We played the zombies board game and watched Serenity. And we ended up watching the first episode. We watched 6 of the 9 or 10 episodes before the end of the night. He goes, oh, put in another one, put in another one.
Right.
You know, and then it was, so there's a game that we can play?
Right.
Big Damn Hero? Yeah. And then it picked up from there. But, you know, it started falling to the guy, you know, I wasn't reading the group, and I'm someone who tends to take responsibility of charging a group just as my job. I didn't see that he was faltering, things were changing with him, he wasn't being prepared. So I stepped up, and I started writing, and the game kind of picked up again. But then again, something changed, there was a shift in the interest of the group, but I wasn't prepared for it because it wasn't something I liked.
Right.
I was willing to give the game a try again, another new system, but the other people I was playing with weren't willing to give each other a try.
Right.
After 2 games.
Yeah, and
There
those
was
are
fighting.
things, you know, even after years and years of playing, you can miss something like that before it's too late.
Yeah.
I mean,
One guy was mad because Serenity ended, and that's why he was grumpy at the other girls. The girls liked Serenity, but they wanted to give Doctor Who a try. The guy hosting had no idea how to prepare for Doctor Who,
right.
and I didn't have any practical knowledge of Doctor Who. And so we had all these shortfalls, and nowhere did we meet in the middle, and things just went south.
I
Right.
often find that it's not the game system, it's often the setting of the genre that really matters.
And it can be. It can be.
And there are so many game systems out there with so many games and going back to rock and roll for a minute, when you have 3 or 4 guys in a room, there are enough good songs out there that you should never have to play a song that you don't like. Just like there's enough games out there, there's enough settings out there, you should never have to play one that you don't like. Maybe ones that you're, but you can play a game that's in a setting and a genre that you're so with and have an absolute blast because of the group.
How do you know? I mean, that's the thing.
You gotta play.
Unless
You gotta try.
And that's the other part of it is, you may be knocking yourself out of a 9-year group of friends,
Right.
just because you don't want to, you
I
don't want to open
absolutely
yourself up
cannot
to something.
stand the Star Wars Saga Edition rules. Hate them. They're, in my mind, they're so clunky. To me, they're just not intuitive. And my justification is there's no online Hero Lab. There's no,
Right.
there's no one of those auto page builders because the rules are so clunky.
Right.
They don't jive with it. I love Star Wars, and the guys I play with are awesome. And when the game stopped, when we took time off, they started playing Pathfinder. Not a fantasy guy, but it wasn't the game or the system. It was the guys that I liked playing with. So I gave it a shot. I found something that I could connect to. I had to wait a few months, and not on purpose, but the Ultimate Combat book came out.
Right.
And that was just enough to entice me.
Yeah, well, the Star Wars, I played in a Star Wars Saga campaign for like 2 years. And, I like Star Wars. I like the Star Wars movies. I read some of the comic books when I was a kid. I haven't read all the books. I've watched the 6 movies, the 6 main movies. And some of my friends are just die-hard Star Wars fans. And a buddy of mine was like, the Saga system came out. I want to play. And with it being like a nice mainstream system, by far not his favorite Star Wars edition. He's a big West End Games fanatic. But it's hard to take a 20-year-old game and get 7 or 8 people to play. A new game, he got us all to play. I like Star Wars, but I wasn't diehard into it. So I made a human noble from a planet that Wikipedia had 1 or 2 lines about. So it's like, I wasn't going to get busted not knowing my lore. It's like I could kind of make up what the planet was like. And, we played for 2 years, one of the greatest groups I ever played with. And it's funny because you still have the guys that they kill the stormtroopers and want to loot the bodies.
It's the same 3 pieces of equipment they have all the time.
I know.
Broken armor, utility belt, blaster.
But, it was an absolute blast. And it wasn't the greatest game system ever, and it's not my favorite setting ever, but it is one of my 2 or 3 favorite groups of people to have ever gamed with in my life.
Yeah, one of the best game I ran for Star Wars was when the PC wanted to play a B-movie actor in a Star Wars setting. It's like, okay, his inspiration was Bruce Campbell. So,
You wanted to be a holovid actor?
Exactly.
Hilarious.
So, okay, and there was just one fight, he had a gun, he rolled critical on hit, but it's like, wait a second, don't they always say your gun's on safety before you do anything? So he could have hit something, but everybody never trusts him with a gun. And for some reason, he was actually far more useful than you think he is. Because, being an actor, he doesn't know much about real life. Guns start firing.
Take off. See you guys.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
ready.
somewhere.
I'm right on your heels.
No problem.
I believe right now the Star Wars license belongs to
Fantasy Flight, yeah. Right now, the only thing that they are producing is the X-Wing combat game. Comes out on 7/7, like 1977, 7/7. it's based primarily on the Wings of War aerial combat game.
Okay.
I know it's a little expensive, a little more so than even Wings of War was.
They're selling individual models, right?
Yeah, they're not at scale with anything that's currently available.
Yeah.
They're a little smaller than the titanium toys that came out a while back,
Oh yeah.
but bigger than the Wizards of the
I see
Coast.
pictures of them.
Yeah.
Catalogs.
They're right up there. I think I don't know what the scale is, 144 or something like
I
that.
love Star Wars, so I bought it in a pocket model, the little
Yeah.
puzzle ones.
I'm gonna take
Right, hang on.
Yeah.
Well, because we have
Unfortunately, I
that
only have one other
evening.
player.
Okay.
This is all right. So basically, it is really about knowing people, knowing yourself, knowing your players, knowing how to reach out to people, You know, I'll tell you right now, I'm not the best rules guy on the planet. I might not be the best strategist on the planet. I might not be the best role player on the planet, but I can tend to get people in a room together, and I go from there. As a matter of fact, on a Thursday night with 2 days notice, I got together a room full of people to talk about getting together roomfuls of people. So, it is all about socializing, persistence, reliability, responsibility, really just like going out and getting a job or any other important life change. If you treat it that way, the more you put into it, the more you'll get out of it.
One recommendation: when you join a group you don't know anything about, you never met the people before, you want to at least get them to like you. Don't play a character who likes to backstab everybody.
Yeah.
That's the invitation to disaster.
Because a lot of people really don't know the difference between playing a character that's an ass and being an ass. And I've seen that way too many times.
That's true.
Well, that's what my character would do. It's like,
Really? Because
I want to punch you in the face right now. So,
let's role play that out.
yeah, I know.
Let's do a little lark.
I mean, if you want to play someone who's that kind of challenge, at least let the GM know, or at least get the
Know
feel of the
everybody.
friend. If the guys are willing to deal with it, go for it. But if you just met them the first time, not a good idea.
Right. So, all right. That's the meeting.
Thanks, Todd.
Yeah, that was
Class dismissed.
So
Now, how do I turn this thing off?
Just, probably.